On March 2nd, 2026, something unusual happened in Zapopan, a quiet area near Guadalajara, in Mexico. A funeral was taking place. But this was not an ordinary funeral. The man being buried was Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, better known around the world as El Mencho. For years, his name had brought fear to millions of people. He was the powerful leader of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, one of the most dangerous criminal organizations in the world. Now, the man who had spent years hiding from authorities was finally gone. News of his death spread quickly across Mexico. Some people could hardly believe it. For more than a decade, El Mencho had avoided capture. Many thought he would never be caught or killed. Yet on this day, his body was being prepared for burial. The funeral was kept very private. Authorities knew that such a powerful criminal figure could attract danger, violence, or revenge attacks. As a result, security forces surrounded the area. Soldiers stood guard. Police vehicles blocked nearby streets. Helicopters monitored the sky above. Even the exact time of the funeral was kept secret. Despite the secrecy, people still came. Some came to mourn. Some came out of loyalty. Others simply wanted to witness the end of a man whose name had become part of Mexico's darkest stories. But many of the people attending the funeral did something strange. They covered their faces. Some wore masks. Others held umbrellas or hats low over their eyes. They did not want cameras to see who they were, because even in death, the shadow of El Mencho still carried fear. When the funeral finally began, one thing quickly caught everyone's attention: the coffin. Reports say the body of El Mencho was placed inside a gold-colored casket. The shiny coffin reflected the sunlight as it was carried into the cemetery. For many people watching from a distance, it was a shocking sight. The golden casket seemed to symbolize the enormous wealth that had surrounded the cartel leader during his life. For years, Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes had built a powerful empire through drug trafficking and organized crime. Authorities say the Jalisco New Generation Cartel moved huge amounts of drugs across borders. The organization was known for trafficking methamphetamine, cocaine, heroin, and fentanyl. These operations made the cartel extremely rich. And now, even in death, that wealth appeared to follow him. Around the coffin were enormous flower arrangements. Truck after truck delivered flowers to the cemetery. Some were designed in unusual shapes. One of the most talked about designs looked like a rooster. This was believed to reference El Mencho's nickname, the Lord of the Roosters. The flowers were bright and colorful, but the mood of the funeral remained tense. People spoke quietly. No one stayed in one place for long. Many mourners looked around constantly, as if expecting something unexpected to happen. Because funerals for cartel leaders can sometimes become dangerous. Rival groups sometimes attack. Police sometimes conduct surprise operations. But on this day, nothing violent happened. Instead, the funeral moved forward quietly. A powerful man who once controlled a vast criminal empire was now lying silently inside a coffin. As the funeral continued, music began to play. In many parts of Mexico, funerals are often accompanied by traditional music. And the funeral of El Mencho was no different. A live band performed regional Mexican music, including a style known as banda. The sound of trumpets and drums filled the cemetery. For a moment, it almost felt like a celebration instead of a funeral. But this type of music has deep meaning. For some mourners, the songs represented loyalty, respect, and farewell. Some of the music played during the ceremony was believed to be Narco corridos. These are songs that tell stories about cartel figures and their lives. For years, songs like these had already been written about Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes. They described his rise to power, his battles with rival cartels, and his ability to avoid capture. Now those stories had come to an end. As the music played, mourners slowly walked past the coffin. Some prayed. Some placed flowers. Others simply stood silently. The scene was emotional, but also mysterious. Very few people spoke to reporters. Most attendees quickly left once the ceremony ended. It was clear that many of them did not want their identities known. Because the world of cartels is built on secrecy. And even at a funeral, those secrets must be protected.
Sí, gracias.
The funeral of El Mencho did not happen without tension. Authorities were extremely cautious. Security forces knew that the death of such a powerful figure could cause violence. Members of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel might seek revenge. Rival cartels might see an opportunity to attack. Because of this, the government deployed strong security around Zapopan. Police vehicles lined nearby streets. Soldiers stood near the cemetery entrance. Surveillance teams monitored the area. The goal was simple: prevent chaos. For many residents living nearby, the funeral was unsettling. They knew who was being buried there. And they knew what his organization had been accused of. Over the years, cartel violence had affected many communities across Mexico. Kidnappings, extortion, shootouts between rival groups, families forced to live in fear. For these people, the funeral was not just the burial of a man. It was the closing of a dark chapter. But many also wondered what would happen next. Because when a powerful cartel leader dies, the struggle for power often begins. And those struggles can bring even more violence. As the ceremony came to an end, the coffin was slowly lowered into the ground. The man who had once been one of the most feared criminals in the world was finally laid to rest. The burial took place at a cemetery in Zapopan, near Guadalajara. For the mourners, it was the end of a life that had shaped many events in the criminal underworld. But outside the cemetery, the world kept moving. The Jalisco New Generation Cartel still existed. Its members were still active. And questions quickly began to spread. Who would lead the cartel now? Would the organization break apart? Or would a new leader rise to take control? Some experts believe power struggles could happen inside the cartel. Others think the organization may already have prepared a successor. But one thing is certain. The death and funeral of Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes marked the end of a major era in the world of organized crime. For years, his name had been linked to violence, fear, and power. Now he was gone. Yet the impact of his actions continues to affect many lives. Families who lost loved ones, communities damaged by cartel violence, and a country still fighting against organized crime. Even though El Mencho has been buried, the story is far from over, because the shadows he left behind are still there. And the question remains, who will step out of those shadows next? El Mencho may be in the ground, but the cartel he built is still standing. The golden coffin has been buried. The music has stopped. The mourners have gone home. But in Mexico, when one powerful figure falls, another is already waiting in the shadows. The story of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel is not over. Not even close. If you want to stay updated on how this story develops, subscribe because we'll be covering exactly what happens next. And if you made it this far, you already know this rabbit hole goes much deeper.